So, you can go in Instagram and you go click and you see Blair Underwood's getting a divorce.
How do you get to that point where we're able to have the confidence that, we're not a failure, it just didn't work?
Bruh, the most difficult conversation I ever had in my life. You get to the point where it's time to move on.
Yeah.
You can't just live your life for the public. Tough part was knowing once we put that on social media, it was gonna light a fire.
Knowing the real story, did you ever feel the need to correct the media and really change the narrative to make people understand that, it's not like I just abandoned my wife for my friend?
Yeah, I met her when I was 16 before I even got into this industry. I never thought to think that I deserved anything. It took me a while after the divorce to even articulate I deserve to be happy. And I consider our relationship, I categorize it as a 43-year unfinished conversation.
I'm Simeon Pando.
Gloria Monet.
Tank. I'm Melvin Gregg.
This is another episode of Nice and Neat.
I'm Duke.
I'm Omar.
I'm Jalon.
Welcome back to another episode. Yo, what's the deal, y'all? Hope all is well. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Duke.
I'm Omar.
I'm Blair.
And I'm Jalon. Welcome back to another episode of the #1 podcast in all of Los Angeles, Nice and Neat. We have probably the most qualified gentleman we've ever had on this show. Ever. We have somebody who we've literally been watching our entire life. When I thought about actors, especially black actors, this man was always in there. You got Denzel and you got Blair Underwood when we think about the 90s and growing up. And we got him here today. I do not want to short him on his introduction. We have an Emmy winner. We have a Grammy winner. We have a Tony nominee, which he still could chase that EGOT. And he's still working. He has over 30 years in the industry. Blair Underwood, what's going on, boss? How you doing
Bro,
today?
man, I appreciate that, man. I'm like, who's that brother?
Who is this guy?
Hey, man. Nah, it's good to be here, man. I've seen the podcast, and we'll talk about how we connected. But I'm just impressed with what you guys have been doing, and just having these conversations that brothers don't really have enough of, and to put it out there. And I know you've got a lot of feedback. What 125,000 views and shows.
Oh,
125
we got
shows.
Millions of views.
Yeah, millions. See, that's what I'm talking about. But just it's a need. And y'all feeling that need. So I'm honored to be here.
No, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you, bro.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Thank you for
Thank
blessing
No,
us.
thank you so much. Man, we have so much to talk about. I'm sitting here thinking okay, where do we start? Do we start on the incredible father you are? Do we start on the incredible husband that you are? Do we start on the incredible career that you have? Let's just start from here. I want to start where most people want to start from. Let's start from Set It Off.
All right.
Let's start from Set It Off. Arguably your most notable role ever. You are extremely suave, extremely debonair, and you carried that out in that role. Tell us how that role came about.
Man, so that came out, I think, 94, 93, 94. I don't even know. I can, Google it, whatever. But F. Gary Gray, who's become a tremendous director in the industry. Legendary. Mm-hmm. So in the 80s, I was directing videos. F. Gary Gray was my first AD.
Like music videos?
Music videos, yeah. He was my first AD on 3 of my 4 music videos. And he had called me up, told me that he's doing this movie called Set It Off. And I was actually doing a film about Jackie Robinson and Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson called Soul of the Game. It was on HBO at the time. So I'm playing this noble Negro character and Jackie Robinson, and I was and I love historical pieces anyway. And they sent me the script, and I remember reading, I think like page 12 or 15, and it was a scene where Jada Pinkett was about to sell her body so she could raise money to send her brother to college. And I remember I said, I don't want to see that. We were fighting in the 80s at this point. Boys in the Hood was out, Minister Society was out, and there's a lot of hype about, they only want to hire us as, playing street thugs. Yeah, and fighting each other and killing each other. And I remember throwing the script across the room. I was like, I don't want to see that. Part of it was because, I was playing Jackie Robinson and something, a different kind of project. And I said no. And I think Gary called me up and said, yo, what's up? And I was like, I don't know. Then I talked to my manager, and she said, why'd you say no? And I was kind of hemming and hawing, and she said, did you finish the script? I said, well, honestly, I never finished the script. She said, boy, read the damn script. Then call me. And I read it, and then when I saw the nuances and the complexities, and specifically in the character they wanted me to play was the love story of Jada and Keith was the character I was playing. I said that's a nice texture to not just the violence in the streets, and also I saw the complexities with which they were presenting these four women. You know, it wasn't just bang bang shoot it up. So I was like, this could be something really really special, and I'm glad I did it, man, because it's here we are all these years later talking about it.
Yeah. I thought it was crazy, man. What was your favorite part of the movie? Like, what was your favorite scene?
Not the love scene. My wife's sitting over there said, don't say the love scene.
Do you remember what song it was playing? What's it gonna be?
That's right. In bold. That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Damn, what was my favorite part about that was, I think really just the relationship we were able to create. I mean, Jada and I, in the midst of that, because really all of my scenes pretty much were with Jada. I didn't really work with Queen Latifah or Vivica or Kimberly Lease on that one. But, man, that's I don't know, just the whole thing, really. And I think part of it was the process, too, the rehearsal process of just trying to figure out who these people are. And I just appreciated and respected Gary Gray, for really trying to find some layers and dimensions behind the relationship.
Yeah.
Did you
Go ahead, brother.
Did you guys realize? I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but in the moment, did you guys realize the kind of impact that film was going to make? And two-part question: did you realize the kind of like caliber of people that you were working? I mean, it was kind of early on in everyone's career, right? So, like, did you understand that, or did you even see the? I guess, could you see the potential in everybody that was on the set as well?
Oh, absolutely. The potential, yeah, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know, and you're right, because this was the early 90s. We were all coming up in our careers. I mean, I mentioned, the cast. And Gary Gray, too, as the director and as a filmmaker. So you never really know what you're going to get. So I didn't necessarily know, except I knew I was dealing with talented people. I knew everybody was committed. And we were all about, let's do our best job, and let's just kind of do our thing. But the response to the film, then and now,
Crazy.
blew us all away. Because you never know. I mean, you work just as hard for the flops as you do the hits. And that's why I was saying before, it's not so much about, we'll talk about this later, but chasing awards. It's about what is the work. Let's do the work. Let's tell a story. Let's maybe send a message. Let's make people think. Let's entertain people. But when people respond that way, the way people are responding to your podcast, because you're giving them something they need. And we hadn't really seen ourselves so much. We had, again, there was Boys in the Hood, Men in Society, but to see black women, telling their story, and say, well, look, we're gonna come up, so we're gonna rob a bank. Okay, that's novel. What's that look like? And then again, the character development behind each one of those characters and the love story itself made it. I think it kind of elevated the story of what it could have been in the wrong hands.
John said you were debonair, you were a smooth player.
I told him to say that.
Right, all those things. Okay, check this out. So you were a ladies' man. Right, not in real life, but I don't know what you was in real life. I already know, but I just know that you were one of the guys that the ladies like, chocolate handsome guy, right? The other person that you used to talk about was Morris Chestnut,
right?
All right. Where do you think you rank on that list in terms of? How you gonna put that on me? What do you think you rank on that list of like handsome black men of the 90s?
Bro, I can't even answer. That's not for me to answer. I can't even answer that. But I'll tell you, this was funny because I did a movie called Full Frontal with Steven Soderbergh, who directed Traffic, and he just won the Academy Award for that. With Julia Roberts, she just won the Academy Award for Aaron Brockovich. In this movie, Full Frontal, we were playing love interest. And anyway, we're doing the press junket afterwards with Steven Soderbergh, and the two of us are kind of just doing the interviews together, and then Julia Roberts and I did the interviews, and the interviewer said, so Blair, there's Julia Roberts. She went down the list of actresses, Jada Pinkett, and many actresses I had love scenes with. She said, you've kissed a lot of women on screen. And without missing the beats, I was being foolish. I said, I kissed a lot of women off screen too.
Come on.
Come on. I remember Soderbergh just fell out laughing, but I don't know. I mean, listen, I was young and dumb and, doing my thing, but I can't quite answer that. That's not really for me to answer.
You don't answer it. Let's ask the audience. All right. So what do y'all think, man? Blair Underwood. Who else we got? Morris Chestnut. Who we got? Do I want to say Denzel?
Throw Denzel in there.
Okay, Denzel Washington. Who else?
Shamar Moore.
Shamar
Moore.
Bill
Bellamy.
Yep.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All good brothers too. Everyone.
Hey,
good brothers.
rank them. Just rank them in the comments. All right, who's your favorite? 1 to 5, 5 to 1, however you want to rank them. Do us a favor, rank them.
No, that's honestly. So, give you a little flowers right quick. I thought it was, when I think about it, it's so dope on, we talk about masculinity a lot, right? And I feel like when people look at masculinity, they think about muscles, they think about aggressiveness, they think about aggression, the way people carry themselves. And man, honestly, you define masculinity.
For sure.
You really define masculinity in the way that you speak, the way that you carry yourself, the roles that you take as well. I don't feel like you take too many compromising roles. One thing that I think about, though, when I think about you is, on camera, you're lover boy 90% of the time. That's who you are, right? However, in the Tyler Perry movie, you were, we'll call it the complete inverse of that. Right?
You got the grits to the face, right?
The grits in the face.
The grits in the
Medea's
face.
family
Got
reunion.
the grits to the
How do you channel those type of characters and being completely, I know you're an actor, you're professional, but being completely opposite on how you really carry yourself in real life, to be able to just tap into that and be like, man, I believe that, and I don't even like this character because of that.
Man, first of all, let me say I deeply appreciate you saying that. You know, everything you said. And I really attribute that to my male heroes. And there are really three. There's my father, who's my personal hero. There's Sidney Poitier, who was my professional hero. And there's Bishop Kenneth Armour, who's my spiritual hero. He was my pastor here, right here in LA at Faithful Central. In terms of that masculinity, because it's not just being strong physically. It's not just being even strong in a relationship, but it's also being able to listen and hear your partner, hear your family, hear your kids, you know. So I appreciate that. Playing those roles, it's funny you mentioned Medea's family reunion, because right after I'd done LA Law for 7 years, which was really put me on the map, literally the day after my last day, I went to rehearsal of this movie called Just Cause with Sean Connery, Lawrence Fishburne, and I played a serial killing.
Some names that you've been next to.
Oh man, it was Ed Harris, a 10-year-old Scarlett Johansson was in that movie. But my character, the storyline, basically, if you haven't seen it, it's a spoiler alert, but it came out in 1994. But basically, I'm this character. Ruby Dee was my grandmother in Florida, the Everglades of Florida. And I was accused of the rape and murder of this 12-year-old white girl. So there's a racial element involved in that. And Lawrence Fishburne played this cop who was like the asshole cop. And he looked like the asshole. And I'm like, you know, because we all, especially as actors, you have whatever God gave you, your physicality, your face, your look. So people kind of look whatever God blessed me with and say, well, he's a good guy. They assume he's a good guy. So this character, you assume he's a good guy. And then Sean Connery plays the attorney, who's my attorney. He gets me off for the killing, the murder of this 12-year-old white girl and rape of this 12-year-old white girl. So once I get off, then the whole movie turns. And you realize that I did do it. And Lawrence Fishburne was right the whole time. So he turns out to be the good guy, and I turned out to be the bad guy. So the whole thing flipped. That really set my career on a whole other trajectory of playing mostly bad guys, a lot of bad guys. So it's fun. I love that you say that, because there have been, especially in the 90s, a lot of good, I go back to Noble Negro. You know, the romantic lead. But, you know, my daughter would tell me, she said, you know, Dad, a lot of my friends of my generation think of you only as the bad guy. Because there's Medea's family reunion, there's a lot of different films or projects that came along. And my boy, I did a show just recently, last month, it was on CBS called Elsbeth. It's a brand new show. And basically I played this coach. My son is a pro player. And I'm basically, you know, just overkill trying to get him to win. I end up drugging the opponent. That opponent ends up dying unexpectedly. But he said, man, you always playing the lovable asshole. He said, I love that. But it was the first 10 years of my career was really all positive, good guy characters. Just Cause turned the table on that. And then after Just Cause came Medea's family reunion. And there was a lot of bad guys. But I'm grateful for that, because now people, when you show up on screen, they don't know if they're gonna get a good guy or a bad guy. You know, but that's all what we're talking about. It's all the complexities and the levels and the dimensions of the character, not just what you look like. You know, whether it's just us and your podcast, we're just black men, but each one of us are different. Each one of us carries something different. Each one of us can be righteous. Each one of us could be vicious. There are dark sides to all of us, you know. And some of these characters I played, you know, it gives me an opportunity to tap into that dark side. And they're also the more interesting characters to play. You know, if you're a good guy, you know what to expect. The audience knows what to expect. You're the good guy.
Yeah, I do appreciate there's a calmness about you, right? There's like this composed person, right? When I look at the screen, and I say, yo, that's the black man that I want to be like, right? Because we talked about how you didn't really like the Set It Off script in the beginning because you kind of wanted to deviate away from the traditional gangster thug, right? But when I look at you, I get the opposite of that. You know what I'm saying? And I just appreciate that. Where did you learn how to be that person? You know what I mean?
Man, thank you for saying that. My dad was a retired Army colonel. He was an Army colonel growing up, and just he is 92 years old. He's still with us, man.
Okay.
Wow.
He is the epitome of class
That's the word.
and
Yeah.
elegance.
That's the word. Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
and as a kid, I'd watch movies, and I saw Sidney Poitier, who was the first, if you don't know, the first black man to win the Academy Award, and he was the biggest movie star in 1968 during the Civil Rights Movement. Biggest movie star, not black movie star, in the industry. So he's iconic, and I had the chance to meet him my first day of doing the show LA Law, which I said really set my career on his feet. And I was in New York doing all this press, and I got on the plane. It was Eastern Airlines at the time, it was no longer. And I'm going to my seat, man. And I'm telling you, as a kid, I would watch him and say, that's the kind of, thank you for saying what you said. That's the kind of black man I want to be on screen. I want to represent what Sidney Poitier represents. And I'm looking for my seat, and I see this big, tall brother, legs crossed, sleeping. My seat's right next to him, and it's Sidney Poitier.
Wow.
Nah.
Bruh. So, man,
Alignment.
man. So that flight from New York to Los Angeles, I was already going to write this thesis. I had to drop out of college my third year. I was at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, so I couldn't afford to stay. I get on LA Law. It's the #1 drama show on television. So they're like, after my first year, Carnegie Mellon comes back and says, hey, do you want to get your diploma? I said, oh, now you want it? All right, I'm going to roll with it because I just wanted to complete it.
Yeah.
You know, and they said, okay, so you've been out 3 years, write your final thesis on what the industry is like for you. So on that flight, I was going to write my paper on that flight. That paper ended up being this 3-hour conversation with Sidney Poitier. I gave him the first 2 hours off. I said, I'm not going to sweat him. I got 5 hours next to him, so I'm going to let you sleep. So he slept. And then we just started talking. And he could not have been more gracious and open. And it really was an example of me of how I want to be. If I'm ever in a position where people look up to me and admire me, I want to be like Mr. Poitier was to me. And my hope from that moment on, he was like my biggest supporter in my career. Every theater production I did, he was there on the front row, or he was in the audience. He'd call me up after somebody seeing a movie or television and give me his input. But I'm grateful for that mentorship. That I wouldn't be here today without him and other people who have mentored me and believed in me.
Speaking of that, like gaining a mentor, if you're someone, like I'm sure you didn't ask him to be your mentor per se on that flight, right? So how did you guys develop that relationship? And when I'm asking you that, I'm actually asking for all of our viewers and listeners, like when there's someone that they respect and deeply admire, like how do you build a relationship with someone like that that's so successful and to a point that you feel like you could call on and ask for advice, ask for critiques, ask them to help you get better in certain areas? Like how does one even develop that type of relationship with someone that successful?
Yeah, I think you show up and present when you have the opportunity, because that was an opportunity to present yourself the way you were raised to be. We talked about that before. It's like how you were raised to be. All three of you guys, just intelligent, bright, articulate, powerful, young, brothers. So present yourself like that. And I think in general, you don't want to act like you're asking too much of that person. Specifically with Mr. Poitier, by the end of that conversation, he said, he had referenced his book, Measure of a Man, a couple times. And then when we were getting off, he said, I'm gonna give you this book, but you make sure you give it back to me. And I was like, well, how do I communicate with you? And he said, I'll give you my number. So that's how that happened. Oh. But perfect example is Jalal, right here. I mean, I should say, we only just met last year. If I can say this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, his lady is the niece of my wife, and I've known this lady for years, since she was a child. So we finally had a chance to meet. We came by the house and started chopping it up, and I said to my wife a few times today, I told you when I saw you, I said, the reason I want to do the podcast is because I respect who this brother is. And just meeting him and talking to him. I'd seen the podcast, I see what you guys are doing. You're talking about stuff that needs to be talked about, but also the way you take care of, the way you look at Brittany, the way you treat Brittany. That's family to me. I said, man, this brother's about his business. So when you extended the invitation, I was like, absolutely, I got time, let's do it.
Hey, look, man. When you walk into your house and you got Blair Underwood in your living room, dog.
That's crazy.
Because first and foremost, this is the first time as well that I got to meet Auntie Josie. Like, this is the first time I got to wrap my arms around Auntie Josie. So I'm really excited about that, right? But you got Blair Underwood sitting there as the uncle to be like, let's see if this guy is.
Not even as Blair Underwood.
No.
He's not even the guy right
So
there.
I don't even like to play in that space. Like, this is like, I got your niece and it's good, right? Yeah. But just sitting there having a conversation, even though that was his role that he had to play in that space, it was like, man, this is still the same exact guy as I know him to be. You know, sometimes you meet somebody and you just like, nah, I wish I never met him. I wish I never met him because it is not in alignment with what I thought he was going to be. And as we say these things about you, Blair, like, honestly, you are literally, you epitomize, I think, everything that we thought you would be.
Oh, man. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, seriously, super classy. And I feel like we use the word with classy with women a lot of times. And I feel like when it comes to men, that kind of is the men that you, Sidney Poitier, like, I can't think of a more classy man when you just think of class, right?
Yeah,
You absolutely follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, thank you.
And then when you look at somebody like Sidney Poitier and yourself, you have an exceptional career, right? Your career has been great. You've had extreme longevity within your career and you're still working, right?
Yeah.
How does one sustain for over 30 years, remain relevant, and still in the space, but still out of the limelight, out of the negative news, all of those things? Because we still got a lot of ground to catch up on with you right now.
Yeah.
But this is a part of the transition.
So I'll keep my answer shorter then. All right. Well, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Basically, I brought Jalon into it because he showed up just being himself and not asking, "Can you mentor me?" or anything like that. But that's what's always worked for me. Man, I think 40 years. Damn, next year I moved to New York in January of 1985. I think part of it is it's trying to be innovative, always reinventing yourself, have integrity. In the work you do and the roles you take. Man, I can't tell you how many times and how many conversations I've had with producers and basically explain to them how I would like the character to be seen. And if we're not on the same page, if we're not in alignment, then thank you, but no. I'll give you an example. Sex and the City. I did a role in Sex and the City I did 5 episodes on Sex and the City. And the producers, I just said to them, I said, I hope this is not just the black guy. If I can not just be the black guy, but have some colors and characteristics beyond my black skin, then we can talk. That particular storyline that they approached me about was about, there's a character named Kim Cattrall was the character, but she's the fast one. She was sleeping with everybody. But it was about her, Samantha. Come on, man. It was Samantha, and she wanted to find out if the rumors were true about a black man. Okay. About his anatomy. I said, I'm not interested in being the curiosity. I'm honored. I'm always gracious and thank you for even thinking about me for that role. I said, but that's not me. So a year later they called back and they said, would you like to come on the show? And I said, well, what is the role? And they said, well, it's just this character. And I ended up doing the role, but it was the doctor of the Knicks meets Miranda in the elevator, and they have their relationship, which is cool. And I think it came up one time about race. And so when Samantha said you're dating this hot black doctor. That was the only reference to it.
Gotcha.
But there are many roles along the way where I've had that conversation with them. So part of the longevity comes in really having a voice and a stake in how you are presented. Because in this industry, all we have is our talent, our gifts, but you have your look, what you look like, your face, your body, So sometimes people get tired of seeing you. So sometimes you got to take a pause. In 2008,
fall back a little bit.
You got to fall back. You got to.
Yep.
2008, I was doing 3 series at once. I was on Dirty Sexy Money, In Treatment, and New Adventures of Old Christine. 2009, the phone didn't ring. I think people got tired of seing me. There are articles like, he's doing 3 series at once, this, that, and the other, which was dope. but people got tired of seeing me. So I took off 2000. I didn't take off, actually. They put me off.
Said I had to work.
2009 because the phone wasn't ringing. But then, using that time to be introspective, trying to see, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I create my own projects? And then 2010 took off, and keep on moving. But I'm grateful, 30, almost 40 years in the business, to have 2 years when I didn't work. 2009 was not my choice. The other time was 2000. Yeah. 2014, I'd done this series called Ironside. And Ironside was a famous series in the 70s. Raymond Burr played the character. He was in a wheelchair. My mother was in a wheelchair. My mother had MS. She passed away in 2020. And I very much wanted to play this role as an homage to being differently able. Not disabled, but differently able.
I love that.
People didn't tune in. I remember one girl said, in a very blunt way, she said, "Look, Blair, I know you're a great actor. I love watching you, but we want to see you fuck him. we don't want to see you like that." Yeah. I was like, I laughed. She said, no, I feel you, but we don't want to see you like that.
Yeah.
Does that bother you as an artist?
Yeah.
Maybe,
as an artist, it bothered me.
Yeah.
Yeah. As an actor, as a person, I understood it.
You understood it.
I reluctantly understood it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 2013, so you work as hard with the hits as you do with the flops.
Yeah.
And they pulled the plug NBC after the third episode. They didn't even give it a chance, really. And I told my agent, I said, I was so down. I think I was a little depressed. I said, I don't want to see a camera for a year. I'm going to take a year off. I remember I told that to one of my boys. He said, man, that's a bold statement. Nigga, you're going to take a year off and just expect to come back? I said, I don't really expect to come back. I don't know, but I just know I need a year for myself to figure out why am I doing this? I'm not doing it for ratings. I'm not doing it for a big paycheck. I'm doing it for the craft and the art. And if the paychecks come, if fame comes, that's icing. But anyway, but it worked out. I took a year off, and by December of that year, and then basically I did theater. I was going to Israel.
Sharpen the tool.
I'd remind myself, why am I doing this craft? So I had to go back to theater. And that year I ended up doing Othello down in San Diego, and then I went on tour with Cicely Tyson and Vanessa Williams in The Trip to Bountiful. And at the end first week of December, I ended up doing the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that got back from the camera. But I needed it to just kind of revamp. Marvel, yeah, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the television series.
You mentioned doing the theater. Could you talk to us and our audience about the difference in the skill between theatrically trained actors or what's the difference? What's the other word?
Cinema?
Cinema? What's
Screen.
Screen.
Yeah.
Screen.
Screen and stage.
The conversations that I've had with actors is, man, I've had a conversation with a very, very successful actor, and he was telling me about this time he worked alongside Forrest Whitaker, right? And he was saying how, he thought he was a lion until he ended up in the cage with Forrest Whitaker.
Ooh, that Forrest is a beast.
And he was saying Forrest is theatrically trained, you know what I mean? And at the time, this guy wasn't, so he just told me that he was just explaining to me that, these guys are different. So I would love to hear more about it from your perspective, because for you to take a step back to go get in your bag it solidifies him saying that, they're different.
Listen, I respect your lane as a professional athlete. I look at it very much like conditioning as an athlete and the training you do day after day, week after week, and how you incrementally get better and grow and improve, right? It's the same thing in theater. Because see, on Broadway especially, and not all runs of plays, but definitely on Broadway, you do 8 shows a week. 8 shows a week, twice on Saturday, twice on Wednesday.
Same show though, right?
Same show.
Okay.
Yeah, same show. Twice on Saturday, twice on Wednesday. So 8 times that week, you're doing that production. If you ever see a play, a lot of times, the play we did right before the pandemic was Soldier's Play, and that thing was so damn draining emotionally. One run. And those 2 show days, and you got a matinee and an evening performance, it's the whole thing. But what it does is it conditions you, and you learn how to get to, if you run at 50 yards, the first day out there, it's going to be one thing. 3 weeks in, you're going to run it faster, stronger, and you can kind of you can pace yourself. You know when to push, when to push, when to pull back, all that.
Predictable.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing in theater. You know exactly the nuances, the timing, you know what it takes to get to like the end of a Soldier's Play, like in the end of Othello. Same thing. I'm an emotional basket case. In tears, real tears at the end of both of those plays. to do that time and time again, you have to be conditioned. So when you take that training and now you're in front of the camera, when you can just, you mess up, cut, do it again, cut, do it again. That's easy. But to take that run for 2 hours every night, again, twice on Saturdays, twice on Wednesday, when you learn how that muscle works and you know how to get there emotionally, either anger or joy or happy, it's exhausting. But you know how to condition yourself. And that's why when that brother, I assume he didn't do a lot of theater.
No.
Yeah, so when he got in that cage with Forrest Whitaker, who knows theater, so when you mess up and you drop the ball and you fumble the ball, he's like, no, I'm gonna keep going. And I'm gonna give it to you harder, give it to you deep. I'm gonna give it to you 10 different ways, different angles. And he may be used to working the camera where you may go home and repeat it the same way every time. So no, I'm sure Forrest coming at him every way.
That's interesting. You said that. He said, you talk about drop the ball. Let's not even talk about dropping the ball. He was saying, there was moments where Forrest Whitaker was ad-libbing.
Yeah, man.
And like he'd be like, this is my moment and I realize Forrest is taking this somewhere else, but then he'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Right back into the script. And he was like, that's something completely different than what we're doing on screen. You know
Audible.
what I mean?
He ran an Audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. But that's the biggest difference. It really is the experience of being on stage, live theater for an hour where you can't just cut and walk away.
So the stakes are gotta be higher.
Oh, it's a high wire act. Every night it's a high wire act. Yeah, man, it's that's why it's terrifying. If you're not prepared, it's terrifying. Imagine going. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What was it? What was the show called? For the theater,
A soldier's play. Yeah, and that was my second Broadway show. The first one was Streetcar Named Desire.
Okay. And how long does it run though?
These runs, both of them were about 5-month runs. We got fortunate because the pandemic hit, and luckily, 8 days a week for 5 months.
Or 8 shows. Sorry,
8 shows a week for 5 months. Yeah.
That was nominated for a Tony, right?
The show won the Tony. Actually, David Allen Greer won the Tony for Best Feature Actor, and I was nominated for Best Lead Actor. I didn't win.
Wow.
But it's always great to be nominated.
It's always great to be
For real.
Do nominations count in negotiation power?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Win is better.
Of course.
A win is better. But yeah, if you can, especially the Tonys, because of what it takes to do theater, and people understand that. So to be nominated for a Tony carries more weight than not being nominated.
Yeah. Okay.
Not as much as if you actually won.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's why you get to stay so low key. Is you bounce back from not only being on screen, but then you go back into the artistry of acting when you are in plays and you are in theater, right? Recently, when I say recently, I mean within the last 4 years, you hit the tabloids big, right? Hit the tabloids big, and everybody is like, why is Blair Underwood in the tabloids, right? So, you go in Instagram and you go click and you see Blair Underwood's getting a divorce after 27 years of marriage. And I know a lot of people, when you just think about, I don't know why it's so much pressure on Black love in general, but you just like, wow, I idolize this relationship more than anything that I've ever created, right? So in making a situation like that having a public divorce, how was that a space that you actively navigated? You guys have children. How did you navigate it because now you're now in a fruitful marriage as well.
Yeah.
So how did you just navigate that space?
I found that in life, in this industry, in business, but especially in marriage, you have to be so often intentional. Be specific, in particular, and intentional about what you want to accomplish. For my ex-wife at the time of the divorce, what we wanted to accomplish was for us to be in a healthy place, coming through a divorce, and most importantly, our kids would be in a healthy place. So what was intentional was how we speak to them. Once we had decided that it was time, that our marriage had kind of come to an end, a natural conclusion, and we both agreed that, after 30 years together, 27 years of marriage, it was time. And honestly, I think the pandemic put a whole different spotlight on it. Just kind of spending time together, when everything else is out of the way, job and everything else, you spend more time. And it really put everything in stark relief, in terms of who we were now. Not when we met 30 years ago, Not even 10 years ago, but who are we now? So once we decided that, we had a conversation, then we had a conversation about how do we tell the kids? You know, we decided, we broke it down. I wrote down almost like a script. So you handle that part, I'll handle this part, and we'll sit down at the table and we'll have a conversation with them. Bruh, the most difficult conversation I ever had in my life. These are my children. These are my hearts. These are my hearts beating outside of me. And my daughter especially, she was kind of joking. She said, what, y'all? You know, of course, we're trying to hesitate, trying to figure out how we're going to say this. It's like, what, y'all getting divorced? And I was like, yes, we are. And her face just cracked. And the three of them we have 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter, were so devastated. They said, we just need some time. They all went, 3 of them went in the car, went driving, and, you know, they came back and then said, we have questions. And they're very mature. They said, we have questions. So they came back and said, but we want to sleep on it. So the next day we talked about it, the 5 of us. And because we've always been very open with them. You know, we could answer some of their questions, you know, difficult conversations, but necessary conversations. And so that was really, to answer your question about the tabloid of it all, I don't care much about that.
Yeah.
What I cared about were those 3 kids and those 3 human beings. And I cared about the integrity to my ex-wife, because there was no screwing around and no behind the scenes stuff. So I could hold my head high because I honored that relationship. Yeah. And I honored my 3 kids. So whatever anybody else might speculate or think, because my wife now, you know, we've known each other 43 years. We've been great friends. But you can be great friends. I know you guys talk about this on this podcast. You can be friends without having to cross that line. So it was a revelation to us, you know, when my wife now, you know, we were both divorced and had time to be out there for a minute. You asked about my youngest son. My youngest son was funny. He says, so Dad, you dating, you've been married for 27 years, you know, you want to date some celebrities? I was like, what are you talking about? He had a whole list of celebrities to date. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I said, no, wait, is this for me or for you? He said, well, okay, it's for me. It's for me. But that thing, you know, again, because the focus was the kids, when they asked us that day to go to counseling. We did. So like 4 or 5 months later, we came back and we made the final decision. And by that time, they had time to process it. We kind of felt that might be.
Did y'all go into counseling though, like with the intention to find an answer, or did you guys go to counseling to make your kids happy?
That's a great question. Was it a confirmation bias? Just looking for that confirmation, but no. You know, one of the things you said asked about longevity, I did not mention, which is the greatest answer, the most important element of it is God, my faith in God. So I really had to say, look, I don't know. I don't have the answers. Yeah. I'm confused. I'm broken. I don't know the answers. So it really was a lot of prayer. To answer your question directly, the therapy was about, let's see where God leads us.
Gotcha.
But if there was another answer for us to stay together, I wanted that answer. Yeah. If the answer was it's not meant to stay together, I wanted that was the answer I got. But we both came to that answer. Yeah. But it's a great question because I wasn't doing it just so we can tell the kids we did it.
Yeah. I think so divorce is always a big deal, right? Especially when you're a celebrity, especially when you're a public figure. It's always going to be a big deal. I think what made it an even bigger deal was Blair Underwood divorces his wife to get with his best friend, right? That's how they positioned it. Right? On social media and in the blogs, right? So knowing the real story, did you ever feel the need to correct the media and really like change the narrative to make people understand that, it's not like I just abandoned my wife for my friend?
No, because I knew the truth, number one. My kids knew the truth, number two. But also number three, another thing we did, my ex and I, we put together a statement together. We worded it together. This is how it came out. And we posted it both on our social media. And then people took that and ran with it. But we had collaborated and created that statement together with the kids, by the way. You know, we came with it first, and then we presented it to them. And then, of course, my daughter wants to change the fonts and everything. And, you know, they want to have some say-so on the wording and all that stuff. But at this point, the 5 of us are very clear on how we got here, very clear on what's happening. The tough part was knowing once we put that on social media, it was going to light a fire. Yep. and people are gonna start chattering. And then that was a conversation to protect those 3 kids, young adults really. But to say people are gonna talk, you're gonna hear some smack about me. You know it's not true. Your mother's right here. She's telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. So just know, and they've learned because they've been, their father's been in the public eye their whole life. So they know things will be said that aren't true. But I will say too, they never felt and heard things about the father like this time. My daughter said that. Said never heard people attack my dad like that. And it hurt. You know, so I'm cognizant of that too.
Yeah. Cause that's what I'm saying. Like growing up, everyone loves you, right? The guys want to be like you. The women want to be with you. So your perception to us, we're like, oh man, this is the guy. So the first time that controversy hits, I can imagine it's hard for everyone.
You know, and honestly, what was difficult was to really realize that you can't. I'm not playing a role.
Yeah, this is my real life.
Yeah, this is my real life.
Yeah.
And you realize you disappoint people because they look at a marriage, you know, that was upheld by a lot of people. Yeah. They said that's and a lot of my friends. I want to have a marriage like you guys, and I'm grateful for that. But you can't live your life when you get to the point where it's time to move on. Yeah. You can't just live your life for the public. No. I live my life for my kids. Yeah. Yeah, and myself.
How do you get to that point though? Because so many of us, right, we're of the mindset is once we commit and say we're committed to someone, right, we almost feel like a failure from telling ourselves, no, I can't do this anymore, or I can't handle this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll stay in a situation, even though it's cancerous to us, or even if it's like pulling us down, but we'll still stay in it just to save face and just to commit to our word. You know what I mean? How do you get to that point where we're able to have the confidence that, we're not a failure, it just didn't work?
Whew, y'all do ask great questions, man.
It's nice and neat.
It's nice and neat. It's nice and neat. I think when you've exhausted every aspect of the journey, and once you've exhausted everything, and part of it for us was the therapy we had not done. And that was on me. I mean, we talked about it, my ex and I at a certain point, and I was like, I think we know what the issues are. Let's focus on that. And I should have done it then. So when my kids said, have y'all gone to therapy? And I said, no. And they're like, well, why not? That doesn't make sense. So then I said, okay, we should do this and do it legitimately. Once we did that had exhausted everything else. Because again, we're talking about this off camera, but when people get divorced, unless there's something that blows up, it's usually years in the making.
Yep.
So by the time my ex and I put something on social media to say we're going our separate ways, it had been years in the making. And we're very clear on how we got here. So there was a sense of peace, or at least, I can't think of the word.
Clarity?
Clarity. Thank you. Clarity. And in clarity comes strength.
Yeah.
With you saying, by the time we bring our issues to social media, we had already come to a conclusion. Oftentimes, if people separate or get divorced, right, it's because they stop growing together. Could you pinpoint a time in your previous marriage where you realized we stopped growing together?
Yeah. Probably when the kids were in high school and I started going to New York. Probably somewhere around 2012 when I was doing a streetcar named Desire on Broadway. Because up until that, I would say no to projects if I was taken out of town because I wanted to spend time with the kids and the family at that time. So, the kids are in high school now. They don't need me around as much. So I think when I started traveling more, really New York doing plays and whatnot, I think probably the drift started then. If I look back on it now, it's probably around that time. And that's the thing, man. I mean, all of y'all are in relationships and about to get married.
Yep.
About to get married. It goes back to being intentional. but it takes two to be intentional. It takes two to continue to work together and want to work together.
Yeah. Why did you get married again?
Hey, that was a question. That question. That's a question I asked him at my dinner table.
Yeah, yeah, because
You had the kids. You've already done it, right?
you know, my daughter told me 6 months after our divorce, she said, Dad, you're a serial monogamist. I see you getting married in the next year. So maybe she knew something I didn't know. But I will tell you, I mean, I was dating for about 6 months before, Josie, my wife, had been divorced 70 years at that point. I was divorced because we'd been great friends for 43 years. Mm-hmm. I know I'd still be out there dating. Wow. It was her. I mean, to answer your question, it was her. And there's such decades, 4 decades of friendship, of family, of understanding each other. She's godmother of my son. I'm the godfather of her daughter. My brother's godfather to some of her kids. We have 9 kids between us. So there's history in the friendship. I see her ex every weekend with all the kids and the grandkids, and we're cool. But it's taken time and process. But the reason that can be now is because there was such a history before. But most importantly, and what I do want to say to people understand this, most importantly, she had been divorced for 70 years for a while, so there was a settling there. But it was important that I honor everybody in the process. I honored my ex-wife in the marriage and in the divorce. I honored my children. So you can hold your head high, hold your head high when you've done those things. And I was open to what's to come. Like I said, my youngest son talking about, you should be dating some celebrities. He had a whole list to give me. But it was her, and someone who knew me. I met her when I was 16 before I even got into this industry, who knew me and has known me. And I consider our relationship, I categorize it as a 43-year unfinished conversation. There's always something to talk about, always something to share. Yeah.
Did y'all have feelings for each other throughout your whole life?
As friends. And I've said to my kids.
But even just like in your marriage, you're like, yo, like if I ever got single, like I would probably give her a shot.
Nah, nah, because their marriage, from my perspective, was strong.
Okay.
I was trying to keep my marriage strong. So it really was. It's that thing, and it's great. And I'm glad you guys even talk about this a friendship between a male and a female, opposite sex. And I had this conversation because I'm always trying to be as honest as I can with my kids, especially. Remember my boys, well, all 3 of them were talking about it. And they asked me when we first started dating, Josie and I. And I said, listen, let me tell you something. Auntie Josie, what you call her, is a gorgeous woman. It is not lost on me how fine she is. It is not lost on me and what a great woman she is. That's not lost on me. I see it. I saw it.
I'm not blind.
I'm not blind. I've known that. I've seen it.
Let's not play that game.
Yeah, let's not play that game. But we talk about integrity. Talk about my heroes, my father. We talk about Sidney Poitier, the people my Bishop Ulmer, people who helped shape me as a man. Integrity always is at the forefront. And what I did not ever want to do was shatter that. The reality of shattering it or the perception of shattering it. So what I said to my kids, especially, I said, because you're going to have situations, you're young men especially, and my daughter too. I was really talking about boys. So understand this. If you're in a committed relationship, and there's always going to be someone, God will test you, and Satan will tempt you. He's going to bring the right one, the right height, the right complexion, the right shape, the right band. It'll happen. What do you do with it? What do you do with it? How do you respond to it? So no, it wasn't lost on me that she was fine. It wasn't lost on me that she's an amazing woman. But if you have any kind of feelings, which I don't remember a lot of feelings like that. I remember thinking like, hey, she bad, but that's somebody else's wife. No, she bad, but that's not, whatever. There's badness. We live in Hollywood. You see bad everywhere you turn. So that's not the issue. The issue is, what do you do with something that could be an attraction somewhere, and whether you can determine whether it's a tempting or a test. But that's our test.
Okay.
As men.
I mean, so we know Blair is classy, as you can see. I'm curious though. I heard something recently, and it was a joke, but it struck my core of how true it was. It was a comedian. He looked at one of his friends and he was like, "Man, he said, nigga, you got that second marriage glow, right?"
I haven't heard that one.
Right. I asked, and I want to ask, tell us
You
about
still trying to get your first one, man. Don't be thinking about no second marriage glow.
But this is about you. This ain't about us. This
All right,
is about
all right.
It's second.
Because I see a little glow. Your hairline sharp.
That's from the
doing
master
what it's
barber.
supposed to do. Okay. You looking good. You got jewelry on. Tell us about this second marriage glow. Tell us about this excitement. I see you guys travel together. Every time you go to work, she is by your side.
Yeah.
She essentially serves as a like your second in command. You know, and that's a big deal for somebody to be able to fall into that position within your career. Tell us about the second marriage glow, man. How happy are you now?
Man, that's my ride or die right there.
Hello.
She said in her wedding vow, she said, "Where you go, I go." She ain't lying. She said right there. She ain't lying. You know, it's funny. We were talking about that a little bit beforehand because I'm a positive brother. You know, I'm you know, it takes a lot to bring me down. And I've had a number of my boys and my kids recently, I'll tell you about that in a second, on Father's Day, talk about how happy you are. And I said, I didn't understand, 'cause I'm always happy. And really, when my ex were going through stuff, you know, you wouldn't know it. My kids didn't know. We never even argued, which is part of the problem. We never even argued and definitely didn't do it in front of them. So they were completely shocked by it. So I think, you know, for them to see in their father a sense of happiness and joy, what I realized was it wasn't about being positive. It wasn't about being uplifting, but it's fulfillment. And that's what they're seeing. They're seeing a joy and they see a fulfillment. Because if you come through a divorce, there are things that are missing. Doesn't make me a bad person, doesn't make her a bad person, but there are things that are missing. And when those things are fulfilled, you walk differently. You may get the sharp hairline. You know, no, whatever it is though, but I think that's what people see, and that's what I see people closest who know me are responding to. I'll tell you something, you know, just recently came back from Vietnam on family vacation. It was Josie and my 3 kids, and it was Father's Day. And they gave me a card. And they know the thing I value most is time and writing. So you don't have to buy me anything. But for somebody to take their time and write what they feel on a card or a letter or something means more to me than anything. So my 3 kids wrote this long card. They all wrote these long paragraphs. But they all said it in different ways. When my oldest son said, "To see you now after you've dedicated your life to us, it means so much to us to see that you have this happiness because you deserve it." It messed me up. It messed me up right now. It messed me up because I never thought to think that I deserved anything. It took me a while after the divorce to even articulate, I deserve to be happy. But for my kids to say, "You've given to us your whole life." We would take international trips every summer. And my youngest son said, "You've given us once in a lifetime experiences over and over." But I've never asked. And then now to hear them saying, "You deserve to say it. You deserve to be happy." And then to see you with your bride, be happy. Now they mess me up. My kids mess me up. And then what they said at our wedding too. You know, I said we have 9 kids between us. She has 6, I have 3. 8 of them gave a toast. And every single one of them, in their own way, with respect to their, you know, respective parents, Paris, my oldest son, said, "To see you 2 together for 5 minutes, it's obvious you 2 belong together." You know, so to see them love it and embrace it, all 9 of the kids, has been humbling more than anything.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, brother?
No, that was it.
And
Your response gave me chills.
You've established it's evident you guys are in a very mature family.
For sure.
From the kids to your ex-wife to her ex-husband, everyone seems to be really mature and everyone seems to be just handling everything with grace. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that right there is uncommon.
It is uncommon. Thank you.
Uncommon.
Thank you for saying that, because
Especially in our black
That's
families.
uncommon.
yeah. But it's I often say hashtag gratitude, because you can only do is what you can do. You try to treat everybody right. Again, honor everybody. Be intentional about, that little things like, when we got together, her 6 kids, I called each one of them individually, had a conversation. She called each one of my 3 kids individually and said, you know us as Uncle Blair, Auntie Josie. We're dating now. Our relationship is changing. How do you feel about it? What concerns do you have about it? What thoughts do you have about it? Call me if you have any issues. And what I've just found is people in general, but in this situation, they just want to be respected. They want to just know that, hey, I'm heard, right? I'm in this family too. Yeah. Y'all change your dynamic. That affects me somehow. My youngest son is her godson, and he was kind of like, wait a minute, that's kind of like, that's my godmother. Now she's gonna be your girlfriend and fiance. Now your wife. That lasts about a week. Yeah. I said, let me process this.
Yep.
I think they had a little crush on her too, but anyway, I don't know.
So what's next, man? Like, what's like? Is there anything that you haven't done that you really want to do?
Yeah. Well, what's next? A horror film coming out.
Okay.
Called Long Legs, opens Friday.
Is that the one with Nicolas Cage in there?
Nicolas Cage, yeah.
Okay.
Woo!
100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Got to check it out. Oh,
That's
it's
a big
crazy.
deal.
That's big.
It's crazy, man. And it's scary. It's scary. So that's Long Legs.
I don't watch horror movies.
No, you got to see
Me
it.
either, bro.
But I'm gonna watch it.
I gotta watch it.
You got to see it,
Hey,
man.
that's the thing. It's not that I'm scared either. It's just that, I see so many horror, scary movies. It's just like, I don't want to watch another one because it's not about acting usually. It's about just like suspense and stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you, this one's not so much jump scares. My favorite movie is The Exorcist and Dances with Wolves, different genre, but The Exorcist, the original.
It's the scariest movie
That
ever
shit's
made.
scary because
Come on.
it feel real.
No, not Phil.
You're right.
This is what I'm saying.
That's real,
This is
bro.
what I'm saying. And Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
So this film is very much in that genre where it's psychological, but it's also dealing with, it's basically following the serial killer who's dealing with the occult and devil worship. So it's some
It's
some
not
dark
like
stuff.
fake scary. That's what you're trying to
It's
say.
real scary.
It's real scary.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Those are my scary.
So that's coming out, but also, I don't know if we want to talk about this, but this show I'm doing is a series on Stars called 3 Women.
Okay.
So I play the husband of one of those 3 women. But the relationship
I
is,
got a Star subscription. So
ooh, you got to,
Yeah,
bro.
me too.
good.
September
Yeah, on that.
13th. Starts September 13th.
Okay.
So basically it's 3 different women. They're dealing with pivotal parts in their times in their lives, trying to find themselves in, or change parts of their lives. So my wife is in her 30s. She's young and free and fluid, and she's attracted to men and women. So basically we're polyamorous, which is the word now. Old word used to be swingers. if you will.
Okay.
So the deal we have, or my character, with her is you can be with whoever you want to be with, but I got to either be there, I got to watch, and be in control. So of course, that's not something's going to happen. So she's going to start doing stuff behind the scenes. I won't tell you what's going on, but I tell you, I've never done anything that risque, or maybe you don't want to watch this. Be like, I won't see all that. But anyway, so that's what's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, those 2 things.
Okay, pencil it, dog. Hey.
Yeah, and just finished doing a movie with RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan.
Wow.
Yeah, called One Spoon of Chocolate. So we just finished filming.
That year where you was just doing everything again. Are you ready to take off
Man.
next year?
Nah, man.
Okay, I
I got too much to say, too much to do.
Now I did honestly. So, cause I'm just so curious. Cause you and O, you guys were always talking about his community. I know who you looked up to, right? But as far as men, do you have men that you run parallel to, whether they're in the industry or just your partners? That it's just like, nah, I bounce things off of these guys. These guys hold me accountable. Who stood next to you in your wedding?
Ooh.
Oh man, well that were our kids, our 9 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, but my closest people are family. Really, it's my brother, my sisters. I got my boys, my partners. And it's funny you said, do I have a mentor group? I don't have a mentor group, but I try to avail myself to a lot of different, young brothers especially. But the other question was, who are you? Somebody else is Sidney Poitier. Yeah. So one of my boys, Tommy, always says like, you are Sidney Poitier, which is very humbling in and of itself. Yeah.
What about people in the industry? Like, are there people that do you have peers that you are close to in the industry?
Yeah, probably. I say Malcolm Jamal Warner. Malcolm was at our wedding. We got married in the Dominican Republic, and Kim Fields. Kim has always been like my little sister.
Kim
I know she hates that. Sorry, Kim. But But just good friends because, like you were saying, like your boys, a lot of them, minus Jalon, play in the NFL or athletes, and they walk in your shoes. It's just the different specifics to that walk that only those who have kind of have been in it understand it. And for me, Malcolm and I go back to the Cosby Show. I first came to New York in 1985, my first gig. I met him on that set. And I met Kim through him back in the 80s. So, yeah, probably those two are my closest in the industry.
Besides those two, is there anyone you can think of that you've worked alongside in any movie or show or Broadway that you like, hey, this was my most memorable experience?
Ooh, yeah, there are a few, but really Cicely Tyson more than anyone. So when we did Trip to Bountiful, I had the chance to do the tour of it. Now, she did it on Broadway, won the Tony Award on Broadway, and then she did the tour. Cuba Gooding played the role I did on Broadway. He didn't do the tour, so I did it with, again, Vanessa Williams and Miss Tyson. And then we did a film version of it, which was weird. It's the first time I'd ever done something on stage and then transferred that to film at the same time. But nah, man, she was 90 years. She died at 96 years old. She was 90. Just recently. Yep. But she was 90 when we did this play. Wow. So to see her 8 shows a week, yeah, we didn't do matinees with her. Still sharp, man. Still sharp, 90 years old. And if you hug her, her muscles were just ripped. Like you feel it on her back. She would do 60 push-ups every day at 90. But on stage every night, doing her lines in 90% of the scenes. And so I can't tell you how many times I just pulled her aside and said, how are you doing this? How do you look the way you look? How are you doing this? And, she shared little secrets. Like she was a vegetarian since the 1960s. Depending on what you put in your food, you ask about diet. She's taking care of herself physically, mentally, spiritually. Now, she was just a powerhouse, man. She was just one of the most amazing human beings you'd ever want to meet.
Why do I feel like she was in every single Tyler Perry movie?
Because it feels like
that too.
Because she probably was.
Why do I feel like she was?
I was gonna ask you about Tyler Perry movies, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I constantly hear about Tyler Perry movies is you get one take, maybe two, but we get into the next scene. How is it shooting with Tyler Perry?
It was great. I know he does that now for his series because he's doing, he's cranking out so many different shows.
Content.
It was only his second movie.
Okay.
It was a Medea's Family Reunion. And he had done Diary of a Mad Black Woman prior to that. And we had discussed playing that role, the woman beater. Totally started playing bad guys after Just Cause. And I got a series and I couldn't do that. So then the second movie came around and he called me up and I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. And I don't know what kind of deals he made subsequently or then, but he said, he was kind of really starting his movie thing. And he said, I can't pay you what you're worth, but I want to make sure if the film does well, we all do well. So the deals he made then was we all got a piece of it.
That's sweet.
I think it's
that's sweet.
Most I made on any project before or since is that project.
You never done a deal like that?
He shared the wealth.
You never done a deal like that before or since?
Not quite like that because he was open. He was breaking into Hollywood.
Yeah.
He said, I want to get these different talent and be generous. If we win, we all win.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we
It's
won.
almost like the trade-off is like, you get equity in like this because I can't pay you. That's dope.
Exactly. But no, he was cool, and I learned a lot from him just in terms of just the business. I mean, he's just a maverick and a juggernaut right now. Just what he's done, creating content, consistently cranking it out.
That's deep, man. Fellas, anything else?
I'm gonna ask you.
You say that like you've been sitting on that.
I'm gonna ask you. So, I asked you about community, and we've asked about community for a couple of things. Like it's been on our heart, and it's been on Nice and Neat for some time now. That we want to really, really, and truly cultivate community amongst men, amongst young men, trying to better themselves in all areas, whether it's their health, lifestyle and fitness, finances, every single area. So we're actually hosting a convention at the end of August, right? Well, middle of August. We'll call it MENSCON. MENSCON Los Angeles. We only got 20 spots available for men to come in and really just get the type of game that you've given us today. Really come and get that. It's 3 days, and it's a real retreat. Right? Hotel stays, workouts, some of our industry leaders coming to speak. And, we'll keep you in the loop when it comes to that because I know you have a really busy schedule. But any way that you could possibly give back, man, we would love to, because I feel like you have such a bevy of information and knowledge, and you are in a space that we're trying to get to. I feel like it's so invaluable. It's so invaluable what you can provide for these group of men that's going to come in.
Holla at me, yeah. No, just keep me posted on that, because I mean, what you guys are doing, I just want to congratulate you guys.
Thank you.
Because you said it started off just kind of talking in the barbershop, but just to see and understand the need for it, and then to hear the response from people that are tuning in. There's a desperate need for it, and I have my mentors. I currently learn from people. I turn to my dad to this day and others. But anything I have that I can share, I'm open to.
Oh, for sure. There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
I'm good.
Blair, man, thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you.
No, my
Thank
pleasure,
you, man.
dude.
It's
It's an honor for me.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege, right, to have you sitting here.
Thank you,
All
brother.
right. You blessed us. It was great learning from you. Like I told you, man, it's like it turned from an interview to just a conversation, and it became something else therapeutic, something that was educational. And a lot of the stuff we, like O said, man, we take these conversations and we take it home, and like, hey, yo, like, we just sat down with Blair Underwood, and like he said this, and this has got us thinking. So like, what do you think about this, right? So this is how those trickle into real life. So really, really appreciate you, because I'm definitely gonna take something home tonight.
Nice.
All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all for tapping in and watching Nice and Neat. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let us know what your favorite part is. Be sure to follow us on all social platforms. And that said, much love, much gratitude. I'm Duke.
I'm Omar.
I'm Blair.
I'm Jelon. This is another episode of Nice and Neat, and that's that on that.
I'll be the one to
Peace.
take the risk to go and get them bands. I'll be the one to never sit and go and make a plan. Knowing my mother getting old and I don't got no time. Gotta keep a couple for the road, the rest get left behind. Yeah. To the 100.